My parents gave my sister a 126K Tesla and handed me a $1,250 bill. I walked out of that house, but later. Have you ever sat at a family dinner table watching your sister receive the keys to a luxury in Tesla while, at that very same moment, your parents slid you a bill, treating you like a tenant in your own home? That was the moment my life split in two. For 29 years, I'd been a shadow in my family, the invisible son used and ignored. But that night I realized either they'd break me completely or I'd flip the game and trust me. After that evening, our perfect family facade began to crumble so loudly it didn't just shake the house, it woke up the entire neighborhood. I'm Kurt, 29 years old, and if I'm being honest, I've been the invisible son my entire life. My parents, Barbara and Richard, made it clear early on who mattered more. My sister, Tiffany. She was the sun, and the rest of us revolved around her. I was just background noise. When Tiffany was 6 and said she liked ballet, they enrolled her in the most elite dance academy in Boston. When her grades slipped in elementary school, they hired tutors who charged more per hour than I made at my first job. Meanwhile, when I aced every AP class, I got the usual shrug. That comes naturally to Kurt. Mom would tell people like it was no big deal. My hard work was treated like gravity, just expected, unnoticed, unworthy of celebration. I remember one night in high school, this one's burned into me. I'd just gotten my acceptance letter for the varsity basketball team. I was hyped, bouncing off the walls, couldn't wait to show them. My dad barely looked up from his laptop. That's nice. Don't let it distract you from your studies. Meanwhile, Tiffany came home the next day saying she landed a one-line role in the school play, and my parents were clearing their schedules, ordering flowers, promising to sit front row like she was starring on Broadway. By 16, I knew I was on my own. I got a job bagging groceries, saved up for a second-hand laptop, paid for my own prom ticket and tux rental. Tiffany? She was gifted a designer dress that cost more than I made in 2 months. And still, I tried to keep the peace. I wanted to believe maybe I was the problem. That if I just worked harder and achieved more, they'd notice me. So I worked, studied, earned scholarships. I graduated college with honors in business finance. My celebration was dinner at Applebee's, a cheap watch, and a $100 bill in a card. Tiffany's graduation. That was a whole different universe, one that still haunts me. See, this isn't just another sad sibling rivalry story. What happened on her graduation night? It flipped a switch inside me. Something broke, but not in the way they expected. That night was the first time I realized they weren't just overlooking me. They were actively erasing me. And what they did at that restaurant, it was like signing a contract I never agreed to. That was the moment I knew I'd never be their punching bag again. And I swear to you, I can still hear the sound of that paper sliding across the table, their little lease agreement, as Tiffany held keys to her brand new Tesla. That sound. That was the sound of the last straw. Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. And tell me what you think in the comments. I'll feature the best one in the next video. Graduation day for Tiffany was like watching a Broadway show where I didn't even have a ticket, just standing in the wings, clapping when told. I'd actually saved up for months to buy her a gift. A professional camera she'd been eyeing for her photography dreams. I told myself, be the bigger person, support her anyway. I wrapped it up neatly, proud I could give her something meaningful despite my own finances being stretched thin. The ceremony itself was long and hot. I sat between my parents, sweating in my suit, listening to the name after name get called until finally Tiffany strutted across the stage. Mom grabbed my arm, tears streaming down her face, whispering, "Our baby did it," like she'd just cured cancer. I clapped, smiled, tried to ignore the bitterness eating at me. Dinner afterward was at Bordeaux, the most expensive French restaurant in Boston. Private dining room, champagne, flowers, congratulatory banners. For Tiffany, of course. My college graduation, Applebee's, Tiffany's, Michelin star level extravaganza. Everyone was buzzing about her achievement. My Uncle Paul gave me these side glances like he could see through the whole charade. My grandmother Eleanor, sitting quietly with her pearls, raised an eyebrow when the champagne kept flowing, but she didn't say a word. And then came dessert. Mom tapped her glass dramatically, reached into her purse, and handed Tiffany a tiny velvet box. Inside was a Tesla key, a $126,000 car parked outside with a giant red bow. Tiffany screamed, hugged them like they were heroes. Cameras flashed. Laughter, applause. I sat there, frozen. Then, like flipping a switch, the spotlight turned on me. My mom pulled out a folded piece of paper and slid it across the table toward me. "Kurt, your father and I have been meaning to discuss something. Beginning next month, you'll owe $1,270 in rent. It's time you contributed properly." The table went silent. Tiffany clutched her Tesla key. My father cleared his throat. "You're almost 30, Kurt. This is about teaching responsibility." I felt everyone watching me, waiting for me to nod, to play the dutiful, invisible son who never made a scene. My uncle shifted uncomfortably. My grandmother's lips pressed tight. I said nothing. I just folded the paper, slid it into my jacket, and smiled. "We can discuss it later." But inside, my blood was boiling. Years of being sidelined, dismissed, taken for granted. And now this? A Tesla for her. A bill for me. That wasn't a rent agreement. That was a declaration of war. That night after the restaurant, I drove home alone in my old Honda Civic, headlights dim, engine whining, while Tiffany sped off in her brand new Tesla with the bow still tied to the hood. I swear, watching that car disappear into the night felt like watching my place in the family vanish for good. Back in my childhood bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, pulled the rental agreement from my pocket, and stared at it under the yellow desk lamp. $1,270 a month, plus shared responsibility for maintenance, restrictions on kitchen use, even a line about visitor limitations. They weren't treating me like a son. They were demoting me to an unwanted tenant. And the part that really twisted the knife? 3 weeks earlier, I'd mentioned maybe buying a new car since my Civic was limping past 150,000 miles. My dad had scoffed. "That seems financially irresponsible, Kurt. You should be saving for your future." And yet 2 weeks later, they hand Tiffany a six-figure Tesla as if it were a diploma accessory. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I knocked on my dad's bedroom door, rental agreement in hand. He looked up annoyed, already half undressed for bed. "What's to discuss, Kurt? You're living here. You should pay market rate. We've been subsidizing you long enough." I kept my voice steady. "I've been contributing utilities, groceries, fixing the roof, the new water heater, even the damn deck stairs. I've put thousands into this house in the past 2 years." He waved it off like I was exaggerating. "That's different. Tiffany needed encouragement after all of her struggles. She worked hard for that degree." And there it was, the line that defined my entire childhood. Tiffany's mediocrity was hard work. My excellence was just expected. I felt this eerie calm wash over me. My pulse slowed. My voice dropped. "I see. Thank you for clarifying." And I walked away. Back in my room, I opened my desk drawer and started pulling out receipts. Water heater, compressor, mower repairs, utilities, all neatly filed. Proof that I wasn't freeloading. Proof that I'd been carrying them more than they carried me. By midnight, my suitcases were packed. Clothes, documents, the camera I bought Tiffany, even sentimental crap I'd hidden away. 2 trips to the Civic, quiet as a ghost. No one noticed. Then I wrote the letter. Short, cold, final. I declined to sign the agreement. It's best for everyone if I move out immediately. Thank you for letting me stay while I rebuilt. I wish you and Tiffany all the best. I left it on the kitchen counter with my house key weighed down on top. Took one last walk through the house. Backyard where I shot hoops alone. Dining room where my awards were ignored. Hallway walls lined with Tiffany's achievements framed like sacred relics. At exactly midnight, I backed out of that driveway for the last time. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt free. Jason almost fell over when he opened his apartment door at 12:30 a.m. and saw me standing there with 2 overstuffed suitcases. "You actually did it," he said, rubbing his eyes half in shock, half in admiration. "I actually did it," I replied, the words tasting both terrifying and liberating. He waved me in immediately, no hesitation. "Couch bed's yours. Don't even think about a hotel." That's the kind of friend Jason is. The guy who doesn't need explanations when he can see the storm written all over your face. That first week was a blur. My phone lit up constantly and I ignored it just as constantly. Texts, voicemails, missed calls, Mom oscillating between confused, concerned, and accusatory. Tiffany gushing about her Tesla 1 minute, guilt-tripping me the next. Dad, coldly silent at first, then finally firing off a curt, "Your refusal to discuss this is childish and selfish. Family supports family. Family supports family." The irony almost made me laugh. Jason watched me scroll through message after message, shaking his head. "Dude, if I ever got texts like that, I'd block half my family and change my number." "Part of me wants to," I admitted, "but part of me just wants them to see what they lost." So I didn't block them. Not yet. I let the messages pile up like evidence, proof of how fast the tide turned when their workhorse finally walked away. Meanwhile, I focused on survival, updated my address with the bank, scoured job listings, packed lunches with Jason for work like we were back in college roommates mode. And slowly, I felt something I hadn't in years. Possibility. By midweek, I had an interview lined up at Meridian Financial Consulting in Cambridge. The hiring manager looked me dead in the eye and said, "We're looking for someone who can untangle messy portfolios and actually make a sense of chaos. Your record shows you can do that." For the first time in a long time, my work was being valued without the shadow of Tiffany's spotlight dimming it. Then came the moment that snapped me fully awake. Wednesday night, Jason found me sitting on the couch with my laptop open to my financial records. I was calculating what I'd contributed to the house over the past 2 years. Utilities, groceries, repairs, replacements. The total, over $14,000. I stared at the number until my vision blurred. That's when the rage kicked in. Not fiery, not loud, cold, focused. I wasn't just the forgotten son. I'd been subsidizing their damn lifestyle while they framed me as a burden. And something in me shifted again. Running away was survival. But now? Now I was ready to make sure they finally felt the truth. The interview at Meridian turned into an offer faster than I expected. Senior analyst track, real upward mobility, salary nearly 30% higher than what I had been making. I signed the papers, handed in my 2 weeks at the regional bank, and walked out of that office with a lightness I hadn't felt since college. Within a month, I signed a lease on a modest one-bedroom. The place wasn't glamorous. Worn carpet, ancient fridge, walls that echoed. But it was mine. Every fork, every towel, every piece of furniture I picked myself. No hand-me-downs from parents who saw me as their tenant. And yet, the silence at night was loud. That's when the texts from my mom and Tiffany got more frantic. Tiffany's Tesla had already been dinged. Her Instagram showed it with a cracked fender captioned, "First scar on my baby, but she's still perfect." I almost laughed. Her baby. Meanwhile, I was still nursing the Civic through another winter. Then the switch flipped again. Mom started hinting that maybe I should help Tiffany out. Little things at first. She's so overwhelmed with insurance paperwork. You've always been so good with money. Why not guide your sister through this rough patch? And then came the kicker. Tiffany texted me directly. Kurt, I know we haven't talked much since you left, but the Tesla payments are killing me. It's $100 a month plus insurance. Mom and Dad can't really help right now. Could you spot me for a while just until I get settled? I sat there in my half-furnished apartment staring at the message. $100 a month. Nearly the same number they had demanded from me at that dinner. The hypocrisy was almost poetic. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I dug through the receipts I had saved. Every utility bill I covered, every grocery run, every repair. Seemed at around $63 total. Proof that I'd been the one propping up their perfect family facade. That's when the revenge idea hit me. Not quick, not flashy, but surgical. If they wanted to paint me as selfish? Fine. I'd give them a version of selfish they'd never forget. But it wouldn't be about money. Money was too easy. Too forgettable. No, I was going to force them to see me. To finally choke on the truth they had spent decades ignoring. I started small. I printed copies of those receipts and tucked them into a neat binder. On the cover I wrote in black marker, "The Invisible Son's Contributions." I didn't know how yet, but they were going to see it. Publicly. No more quiet humiliation behind closed doors. This time the world was going to watch them squirm. They came crawling back with empty wallets and loud excuses. 2 weeks after Tiffany's Tesla dent and the industry whispers about Richard, my phone blew up with desperate texts that read like bad fan fiction. Kurt, please. Can we talk? It's important. We need you. Even Tiffany, who had once bragged about being proud to be their project, sent a message that said, "I'm scared. The car. The repair. Mom says we have to sell the house." Uncle Paul's call filled in the blanks. An external audit, clients pulling funds, a home equity line tapped to oblivion to cover the house payments Tiffany's Tesla paid with that same line. Grandmother Eleanor, bless her, sent one level-headed text. They will ask. Don't be surprised. I wasn't surprised. I was simmering. I booked Bordeaux. Same private room. The same one Ma had used to hand me a lease like it was charity. I told them it was a family meeting, which was true, but only half the truth. I wanted the symmetry. I wanted them to feel the corridor of humiliation they'd walked me down for decades. They came in their side, deflated versions. Barbara's makeup was smeared from crying. Richard's suit hung like bad theater costume. Tiffany looked small in designer jeans that suddenly begged for rent money. Grandmother Eleanor came too, steady as an old oak. Uncle Paul hovered near the doorway like a mediator. I put the binder on the table before anyone spoke. The cover read, "The Invisible Son's Contributions, 2019-2024. I slid it open and set a second stack beside it. Voicemails, screenshots of messages, bank transfers, receipts, $20,620 in documented contributions. I could feel them watch me assemble the evidence with surgical calm. Barbara's hand trembled. Richard's jaw tightened. Tiffany's breath hitched like someone about to fall. "I'm not here to ruin you," I said, voice level, which somehow made the room louder. "I'm here to show you what you erased." I read them the line from my father that night. "That's different. Tiffany needs encouragement." I read the rent demand out loud. I let each number land. I read the debit memos where their HELOC paid for a Tesla. The air crackled. Then, because I'd learned they twisted the truth when they couldn't win in public, I hit play on a voicemail I'd saved from my mother the year I moved back home. Her voice padding casual. "Kurt, that's just how he is. You never wanted the fuss. You don't need us to throw parties for you." It played in the hush like an indictment. Barbara covered her face and started sobbing, raw, theatrical, then real. Richard lunged for the binder like a man trying to snatch back dignity. His fingers ripped a page. Paper fluttered like wounded birds. Tiffany screamed, half panic, half anger, and shoved her chair back so hard it toppled. She grabbed her phone and ran. Outside, in the valet light, the Tesla's bows still drooped. The dent in the fender caught the light and glittered like bad fortune. She sprinted to it, and in a move so desperate it made my stomach drop, she slammed the passenger door against the side, the mirror snapping and sparks of plastic snapping off. A man from the restaurant rushed out. Plates crashed in the private room from the table behind us at the sound. Glass shattered, crimson wine speckling receipts like blood. Barbara rose, manic now, face streaked with mascara. "How could you? How dare you?" she shouted, snatching for the binder. She ripped a page, then another. Richard, furious and frightened, shoved a waiter aside, knocking a vase to the floor. Terrible physical chaos. A vase smashed. Wine soaked into the binder, receipts curling at the edges. Uncle Paul tried to hold Richard back. Grandmother Eleanor stood, voice steady as granite, and cut through the noise. "Stop! All of you, stop!" They were unraveling visibly, the performance bleeding into panic. I sat there, heart hammering, hands steady on the table, watching the family I knew collapse into the mess they'd made. It wasn't triumph. It was grief. Wild, awful, necessary. They'd expected tears and a check. Instead, they got truth in a public room with shards on the floor and a mirrorless Tesla in the valet. When the manager asked if we needed police, Richard barked no, voice brittle. But the restaurant staff had seen enough. My phone buzzed with screenshots instantly posted from a stranger who'd witnessed the scene. I felt a cold twist of satisfaction that this couldn't be spin-controlled away. They'd have to explain more than they ever had to a manager, to a valet, maybe to clients who'd heard the rumors. I didn't gloat. I didn't laugh. I closed the binder, wiped wine off a receipt with my thumb, and stood. "I'm done being quiet," I said. "I'll help where I can. Advice, paperwork, selling the car, but I won't bankroll what you broke." My voice didn't waver. That was the line. They recoiled like I'd slapped them. Barbara collapsed into a chair and began to wail like a storm. Richard slumped, and the color draining from his face. Tiffany, standing by the valet, looked like someone who'd been pulled from a cliff and left dangling. When I walked out into the cold night, the air bit my face like honesty. I felt hollow and oddly lighter. The world had watched them flinch. They would have to live with that image now. Their breakdown in Bordeaux. The receipts soaked in wine. It wasn't the end. It was the opening salvo. The Bordeaux night hit like a stone tossed in a pond, ripples spreading farther than I ever planned. I didn't post anything, but someone else did. A blurry photo of Tiffany screaming next to the Tesla with its dangling mirror, my dad grappling with Uncle Paul, Mom sobbing into her hands. The caption read, "Rich family meltdown at Bordeaux. Tesla drama." Within hours, it was on a neighborhood Facebook group. By morning, co-workers at Richard's firm had seen it. When I walked into Meridian that Monday, my boss gave me a look that wasn't pity or mockery. It was respect. "Heard your family name's making the rounds," he said carefully. "You handled it well." That's the thing. In every photo I was sitting calm, binder on the table, hands steady. For once, I wasn't the one being cast as unhinged. They were. But my parents didn't take the humiliation quietly. By Tuesday, Barbara showed up at my apartment building. She pounded on the buzzer until a neighbor texted me, "Your mom's outside, screaming about betrayal." I peeked through the lobby glass. She was red-faced, mascara streaked, clutching the torn pages of the binder like evidence in a trial. "Kurt, open this door! You think you can humiliate us like that? After everything we've done?" Her voice cracked and echoed through the entryway, a mom dragging her son's name through the mud in front of strangers. I didn't open the door. I called the super, who told her to leave or he'd call the police. She finally stumbled away, muttering like she was rehearsing a defense in her head. Then Richard tried a different tactic. Cold emails. Subject lines like responsibility and family duty. One read, "Your behavior was disgraceful. If you cared about this family, you'd stop airing grievances in public and start fixing what you've broken. Fix what I've broken." I stared at the words until the rage burned out and left only ice. He was still playing banker, still rewriting numbers so he wasn't the one in the red. Tiffany, though, she cracked. Wednesday night, 1 a.m., I got a string of messages. Long, messy paragraphs. I never wanted the Tesla. I told them I couldn't handle it. They said I'd embarrass them if I drove something else. I didn't know they used the house loan. I hate this car. I hate what it did to me. I hate what it did to you. The words hit different. I could almost hear her crying through the screen. For once, she wasn't golden. She was just my little sister drowning in the role they'd forced her into. Still, she asked for help again. Not money this time. "Please, just come with me to sell the Tesla. I can't face the dealer alone." That's when I realized the revenge wasn't just for me anymore. It was a reckoning for all of us. My parents had built Tiffany into their perfect project, but now their perfect project was begging me to walk her through dismantling it. And for the first time, I considered it. Not to save her, not to save them, but to prove, maybe to myself, that the invisible son had always been the one holding this family together. The dealership smelled like fresh paint and desperation. Tiffany stood beside me, clutching a folder of paperwork with trembling hands. The Tesla gleamed under the fluorescent lights, perfect and broken at the same time, like a trophy with blood on it. She couldn't stop fidgeting. "I feel sick," she whispered, "like I'm giving away the only proof Mom and Dad ever cared." I looked at her. Really looked. For the first time, I didn't see the golden child. I saw someone who had been a pawn, dressed up as a queen. "You're not giving away proof," I told her quietly. "You're giving away chains." She nodded, eyes wet, and signed the papers. The dealership took the keys, and with them the last symbol of their delusion. Tiffany walked out lighter, though her shoulders still sagged from years of carrying expectations that weren't hers. Outside, the November air was sharp, bracing. She turned to me, voice small. "Kurt, I'm sorry for never speaking up, for letting them pit us against each other." I didn't forgive her right there. It wasn't that simple. But I did something better. I put a hand on her shoulder. We start fresh, but on equal ground this time. That night my parents called. I didn't pick up. Their voicemails played like a carousel of denial and regret. Richard bitter. You'll regret turning your back on us. Barbara broken. Kurt, we lost the house. We need you now more than ever. But their need wasn't mine anymore. I'd already given more than enough. Weeks later, I moved into a small townhouse. Nothing flashy, but mine. A place where no one could hand me a bill disguised as love. Allison, the woman I'd been quietly seeing from my hiking group, helped me paint the walls. Every brushstroke felt like a reclamation. This was my life now. And my family? They downsized into an apartment stripped of their manicured facade. Richard worked consulting gigs for pennies compared to his old bonuses. Barbara clung to the edges of her old social circle, but the Bordeaux meltdown had traveled fast. People whispered. Doors closed. The Thompsons weren't the perfect family anymore. At Christmas, I received a simple card from grandmother Eleanor. Inside, one line, proud of you for standing tall. That was enough. More than enough. Because here's what I finally understood. My worth was never in the Tesla keys, or the graduation banners, or the checks that never came. It was in the quiet resilience of walking away. It was in the receipts I kept, the binder I built, the boundaries I carved out of their chaos. I wasn't the invisible son anymore. I was the one who finally forced the mirrors up to their faces, and whether they ever changed or not, I had already won. I chose me. And that's a decision I'll never regret. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and like it. You can also watch more shocking stories in the playlist.